let's jump into it. Disclaimer. So as a starting point, I think we're all very bullish on where we're at in this cycle in this sector. But ATHA was a company that came together and was formed, started trading in April of this year, April 11th of this year, but fundamentally was built, put together, envisioned for where we're at this stage of the cycle and where our view on where the cycle is going. It's a company that was built at scale, built for scale, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're executing and exploring at a significant scale across what I believe is the best uranium jurisdiction in the world, that being the ATHA Basin. Considering we're all pretty up to speed on the macro here, I'll just jump through a bunch of this. I don't want David to correct me on anything. So, the basin itself, I think a number of us sitting in here are very familiar with the basin, obviously, but from our perspective, it is the #1 uranium jurisdiction, exploration jurisdiction in the world for a number of factors. First and foremost, technical scope of the projects and of the discoveries and of the deposits, both in terms of size and grade. Certainly from a grade perspective, unparalleled globally. And then when you look at the other material factors, that being jurisdictional components, even when you think about sovereign governments, etc., the stability of the regulatory process, but also the expertise and the workforce that exists in the province. I would say that there's the highest concentration of uranium subject matter experts globally sitting in a small city of Saskatoon, right, that have the ability to explore, execute, and operate uranium assets. So definitely the best, in my view, the #1 uranium jurisdiction in the globe in terms of exploration and development potential. A bit on ATHA and our foundation, who we are, our people. We have an experienced team, experienced set of officers and executives, but also an experienced board members, and that crosses the stream from technical into the capital market side, which I think both of those are extremely important. On the capital market side, the strength of ATHA, is demonstrated by the fact that in standing up the company and standing up the land package, the team raised over $40 million to put into the company off the bat. And so clear demonstration of the capital market strength. The technical team, myself, I'm a geologist by background, worked across the ATHA Basin, right from early stage exploration through to operations, and in between there, project development as it relates to the work that I was fortunate enough to do on the Arrow deposit well with NextGen. We have Doug Adams, who is our Vice President of Exploration, highly experienced guy that's worked across the basin. He's worked for Cameco, he's worked for Orano, he's been across most projects in the Athabasca, most properties and most deposits. So the strength of our team. And then our asset base, we have an unparalleled land position in the Athabasca. We have exposure to about 3.4 million acres in multiple districts across the basin. Part of that, you'll hear from Drew here in a minute after me, but we partnered with a company called Stallion Discoveries in an earn-out agreement or earn-in agreement, depending on which side of it you're on, who operate about 530,000 acres of that land position, but the remainder of the land position is operated 100% by ATHA. Our strategy is ultimately a growth strategy. It's leveraging the land position we have. It is growing through kind of three streams that I'll talk about throughout the presentation here today. The first stream is organic growth through exploration, through advancing our early stage exploration assets. A parallel stream to that is exposure that ATHA has to NextGen Energy and ISO Energy's exploration programs through a 10% carried interest on the majority of NextGen's properties and key properties within ISO's portfolio. And then the other one is simply through looking at opportunities and taking advantage of opportunities from, say, a consolidation viewpoint as it relates to where we're at in the cycle and based off the platform that ATHA has. So those three streams, and fundamentally, as I said, it's about growth. Market cap, we have a tight structure. We've got about 126 million shares out, with very strong insider ownership and institutional shareholder base. And I guess I should point out about $25 million in capital. So very strong balance sheet, very well funded to be able to execute the work that we have planned over a long runway. Just looking at where we sit relative to this space. And again, it's, you know, we came into, ATHA was envisioned to come into the market at this time, into the uranium cycle at this time with scale. And there's certain advantages to both explore at scale, but then the opportunities that you see as it relates to the scale of the company in terms of, you know, being an attractive opportunity for, you know, consolidation in some instances. Our land holding, as I said, it's 3.4 million acres, which is substantially larger than the rest of the Athabasca Basin. It's across multiple areas. And, you know, when you look at it on a map, it's one thing to look at it on a bar chart, but when you look at it on a map, it covers, you know, the land position covers the north rim districts, so the northern edge of the Athabasca Basin, you know, properties throughout the eastern Athabasca Basin, in the Cable Bay area, which is a highly underexplored area within the basin itself. But this position was accumulated by a couple guys over the course of about a decade, and those guys have a track record of having been very successful in the Athabasca Basin. The prospectors behind it that accumulated this land package over the course of about 10 years of Matt Mason and Tim Young, you know, they have a history that goes through previous successes like Hathor, and then actually vended some of the foundational assets into what ultimately became NextGen, and then post that opportunity set to work acquiring a large land position, and that's how that's how you get to 3.4 million acres in the basin. It's systematically over time. A little bit on the carried interest, so I'll just explain it in a bit of detail. So the carried interest on key portions of NextGen's ground, if I can figure out the pointer here. So in purple, Dave, sorry if I get you in the head with this, but in purple you have SW1, SW2, and SW3. The dark green overlay on top of that is is our carried interest in NextGen's exploration property. Of note, this is where F3 is working right now. That trends right onto SW1 is an area of active focus of exploration effort for NextGen currently as we sit. They're entering into a stage. Where they're doing more exploration work again. They have a bigger exploration program than they've had since the discovery of Barrow. Certainly, they've had large drill programs. Those have predominantly been focused on delineation. Now they're returning to an exploration phase, and through our 10% carried interest, we have exposure to that exploration activity that they're currently undertaking, and we expect them to be through that 22,500 meter drill program by this quarter, and we anticipate news coming out this quarter on the results of that program. Similarly, we have a 10% carried interest on a couple key projects within ISO Energy's portfolio, that being the Radio and Thorburn projects. Again, if I get our laser point right here and right here, those are in, you know, the eastern Athabasca, right within the, you know, current producing jurisdiction. So for ATHA, you know, we like the carried interest, we like the optionality that it gives us, we like the exposure that it gives us to NextGen's team, and to NextGen's exploration expenditure across very good pieces of their exploration package. Now, getting into, you know, a natural question comes up. It's so 3.4 million acres. How do you go about exploring? How do you go about leveraging the potential within that land position? And, you know, fundamentally, from my perspective, having a land position the size and scale that we have within the Athabasca Basin region, in all areas from the north, kind of around the rim, on the edges, etc. Having a land position like that, then fundamentally, you know, the next thought process is, well, exploration is a business of probability, and the probability of discovery, the probability of a land position containing one or more deposits of note increases with scale. So off of that thesis now, it's about how do you execute, how do you systematically approach exploration to systematically reduce uncertainty, increase probability of discovery. And the approach that we have taken is is you have to do it at scale. You do it through large-scale assessment, working your way from a regional scale down to a finer scale as you add data, as you add layers of information. What that ultimately does, again, is it reduces that uncertainty, increases probability in the targets that you ultimately select out of that massive land package. So our view is that the targets coming out of the land package are going to be significant, and they're going to be high probability as a function of that starting point, which is over 3 million acres across the basin. Now, to do that, we've this summer we kicked off kind of an unprecedented EM survey in terms of the scope and scale of it. We had 7 helicopters flying at one point. At one point, we had 7 helicopters flying across all districts, so we covered about 2.1 million acres of the exploration package with modern EM. That was across multiple systems, across multiple surveys. As we speak right now, we're currently in the process of literally getting terabytes of data back. We're processing that information, and we're generating targets. And I can say that the results to date have exceeded the expectations that I've had. We're seeing conductor complexity that we want to see. We're seeing conductor complexity, on strike of interesting surface geochemical samples and anomalies. And so the whole idea, the whole concept here is that, we've defined about, say, 125 kilometers of conductive strike length across 4 properties, across 4 of the projects, 4 of the 17 that we've flown. And in doing so, have identified 15 areas, 15 areas that are of interest within that, that 125 kilometers of conductive strike length. That's on only 4 of the projects. Okay, so we've got 13 projects left to go. What we're going to do is pull those all in together, assess, prioritize, focus in, and pick the best of those areas in which to move forward. So we anticipate having a significant portfolio of exploration targets, of high probability exploration targets moving forward by, and the timeline on that, the objective that I've given for the technical team is, that process is going to come full circle by within the first half of 2024. So defining drill-ready targets by the first half of 2024, and then advancing exploration through drilling from there, moving forward. So just getting into some of our, expected timelines over the near term here. As I said, we've got 4 of the surveys done, 4 of the survey results processed from 17 target areas or for 17 projects. That'll continue to come online. We'll continue to process those results, continue to generate targets. In parallel, exploration work through the earn-in agreement that we have with Stallion Discoveries will start in this quarter, and then in addition to that, we anticipate NextGen to have completed their drill program on areas that we have a carried interest in, and so exposure to NextGen's exploration program. We expect those results in Q4. In addition to that, then in 2024. It is a continuation of our execution strategy. We will continue to process those results. We will continue to execute additional geophysical surveys as we go through that, target generative process leading into the spring, where we anticipate hitting the ground with, I would say at this point, probably multiple drills. Just to pull it full circle here, it's, ATHA is a company that was built for this stage of the cycle. It was built with scale in mind. We are executing at scale. As a function of that, it's my view that that increase, that translates into a reduction in risk and an increase in probability of exploration and discovery within the Athabasca Basin. In addition to that, from a value generative perspective, 10% carried interest and exposure to NextGen's exploration and ISO's exploration plans on 2 of their properties, on 2 of ISO's properties. And then in parallel to that, based off where we're at in the market, where we're at in the cycle, we see opportunities to look at and consider opportunities across the basin from a consolidation perspective or an M&A perspective. And so it's three key areas of growth, that being organic exploration through exposure to the largest land package in the Athabasca Basin, that we, importantly have the balance sheet and the runway to be able to explore and to be able to leverage and unlock the value within that position, and and the capital markets team and the technical team to do it. So we like where we're at. We just got started. We got started in April of this year. Have done a significant amount of work to date, and will continue to execute as the cycle continues on.